So we can use some advanced concept with Elastic Beanstalk, and they get asked maybe at a pretty high level, I would say, at the exam. So the first one is that when you want to deploy your code to Elastic Beanstalk, you need to zip it, and the zip file must contain the code, as we've seen from before. All the parameters you set in the UI can also be configured with code using some files. Okay, so everything we've done, manually through the console can be interpreted with code. And so for this, it's called Elastic Beanstalk extension files. So these files must be in a directory called .ebextensions flash, and it's at the root of your source code. Okay, we'll see this in a second. The format of the files within that directory must be in YAML or JSON. We've seen JSON before. YAML is just a markup language. You can Google it real quick and get a small tutorial on it. It's actually quite easy and nice to read. The files must end with the .config extension, for example, logging.config. You can name the file whatever you want, okay? The idea is that the exam may ask you like, what's the file naming convention, etc., or where to place the files, and you're able to modify some default settings using the option settings parameter. And the use case of doing extensions is to add on functionalities to Elastic Beanstalk, so to modify configurations or even to add extra resources that you want to manage, such as RDS databases, Elasticache, DynamoDB. We haven't seen DynamoDB yet, but you get the idea, etc. So you're able to just add on whatever you need and customize Elastic Beanstalk to your needs thanks to these Elastic Beanstalk EB extension files, okay? So all the resources managed by the EB extensions file will get deleted if your environment gets ever deleted. So it's just something you should know about. So if we look in our project where we edited things, we see that there is a .eb extensions directory, and within it, there's a logging.config. This config file, I can set up the format to be YAML. 1 second. YAML, here we go. And we get some highlighting. Basically, this file doesn't contain much. It just defines 2 new files to be created, and it sets the content of these files. To be honest, these are too advanced for the exam. What you should be knowing though is that the .eb extensions folder goes at the root of your code, okay? So next to your app.js, cron.yaml, index.html, package.json, okay? And within it, you can have .config files, for example, login.config, which contains instructions about how to customize Elastic Beanstalk. So I just wanted to show you this at a high level so you get an idea of how they work. So there's also a additional command line interface you can install. It's called the EB-CLI. EB obviously stands for Elastic Beanstalk, and it makes working with Beanstalk from the CLI easier. So even though using the EBS CLI that we've installed from before, we could interact with the Elastic Beanstalk, this EB-CLI makes everything way easier. So the basic commands are EB-create, EB-status, EB-health, events, logs, open, deploy, config, terminate. And so all these commands you don't have to know, just get an idea of what they do. The name is pretty obvious. EB-create will create environment, status will check the status, health will check the health, etc., etc. And so the very important command right here is EB-deploy when you want to deploy your application. So what would you even use the Elastic Beanstalk CLI in the first place? Well, it's very helpful when you want to automate your deployments using automated deployment pipelines, and we'll see those in the next section when we do CI/CD. So something to know about the EB-CLI, and it starts with the command line EB. Okay. Now, under the hood, how does Elastic Beanstalk work? That's also a question, or it can be asked at the exam. Under the hood, it relies on something called CloudFormation. Now, CloudFormation is an AWS service, and we'll see this way later in this course, okay? But just so you get an idea, let's have a sneak peek into it just to understand how Elastic Beanstalk works under the hood. So here I am in my console. I will go to services and type in CloudFormation and open this in a new tab. So as we can see from before, we have my first web app, Elastic Beanstalk. We have 2 environments, okay? They're running different versions, sample application and Node.js v2 Blue. By the way, the application versions we can get from this tab right here, application versions. So that's great. And from there, we can see that there's 2 CloudFormation stacks that have been created. And so this is behind the hood, okay? You don't have to change these stacks. You don't even have to know how they work just yet. But you can see from the description, the first stack right here is for AWS Elastic Beanstalk environment named -env. So that's our first environment. And this one is called Elastic Beanstalk environment for -prod. So the idea is that these stacks basically got created by Elastic Beanstalk, and this is what triggers all the changes happening in your environment when everything updates. You could click on those, and if you're curious, you could look at outputs, resources that get created. So these are all the resources that get created, some events, etc., etc. This is pretty advanced already, but when we deep dive into CloudFormation, you'll understand better how these things work. I just wanted to give you a sneak peek and tell you that yes, CloudFormation, Elastic Beanstalk is not magical. It actually, under the hood, generates some CloudFormation files for you, and CloudFormation actually performs the heavy lifting of updating everything. Finally, just an optimization around the deployment mechanism. Basically, when you deploy your application, you describe the dependencies of your application. And that could be a requirements.txt file for Python, package.json for Node.js, or other files. And so you package all your code as a zip file. That zip will get uploaded somehow to each EC2 machines. And then each EC2 machine basically will resolve the dependencies. And that can be slow if you have a lot of dependencies or they're very big. And so in the optimization, in case you get very long and lengthy deployments, is to package a dependency with the source code. And that helps improve the deployment performance and speed because all the dependencies have already been resolved once and they get uploaded to each EC2 instances right away. It's just a small optimization you may be asked about at the exam that you should know about, but Elastic Beanstalk basically takes the source code on each machine and resolves dependencies there locally on each EC2 machine. And that's why it's way safer to have your dependencies and your code all along together into one zip file. So I hope that's helpful, and I will see you in the next lecture.